Today on the Prudent Advisor, all the right moves. How to make sure there are no snags when the family business is passed down.
Plus 401k versus IRA. Why one could make you richer.
Then REIT reality. It's a unique way to invest in real estate. Karen Gibbs takes a closer look. The Prudent Advisor starts right now. Welcome to the Prudent Advisor. I'm Lee Thompson.
And I'm John Palmer. In today's Topic A, who gets the business? When you've worked very hard all your life to build your business, it's not always easy to hand the reins over to a son or to a daughter.
But there are steps you can take to make sure the transition goes more smoothly. Retirement Living's Bob Beard introduces us to one family handling succession the right way.
In 1943, Dr. Hyman Seltzer moved his family from New York to Newport News, Virginia to start a small podiatry practice.
Made $84 the first week that he was here, and he thought he was in heaven. So from then on, he continued to practice. He had a very small practice, but very active and a very good practice. In 1968, I came into the practice with him. We moved his office from a small place to a larger building, and there we felt like we could service people better.
Over the years, the family practice has grown into a small business with several physicians and staff. In 1993, Dr. Seltzer's nephew, Howard Rosen, joined the group.
You're dealing with health care. It's definitely a business, and you can't just look at it as just dealing with patients, because a business is part of it also. And recently we brought in things like in-office dispensing, where certain products that people will be able to take home with them as opposed to going to the pharmacy or somewhere else to get them.
I remember when I brought my partners in, I never made them pay a lot of money up front. In fact, they paid no money up front. They paid a percentage of what they earned over the several years, and in 4 or 5 years they became partners.
Even though it was family, we wanted to make sure that nobody was misunderstood about it, and we put it down on paper in a contract and agreed upon it.
So how has this podiatry team managed the transition from one generation to the next? Find out later in the program.
Well, believe it or not, there is some psychology behind family succession. Your personality could determine whether you can successfully hand over the business. Here with more about family succession is Wayne Rivers. Wayne is a speaker and executive coach at the Family Business Institute.
And the Family Business Institute helps family-owned businesses tackle the unique challenges that they might face. And Wayne, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
We just heard John say that personality could make a difference. How so?
Well, there's lots of different personality types out there, and some are naturally attracted to business and some not so much. So it's easy to find family businesses where they have 3 children, and one of the children may be asked to do certain things in the business, a position of responsibility for which they're not basically cut out. And so you've got a square peg in a round hole, and that doesn't make anybody happy in the long run. So personality itself is a key indicator.
So are you saying you have to find the child who has the right personality to pass this down to?
It's a complicated mix. I am saying that. But in families, we tend, blood being thicker than water,
right,
we tend to try to find things for our children to do so they can stay close to the nest, if you will.
Well, so this isn't necessarily a good bet, is it? Sometimes, often successions fail, don't they?
The majority of successions fail. 70% fail from generation 1 to generation 2, according to the best and most widely quoted statistics.
You know, we've always heard that the father goes out and makes the money and sets up the business and really gets it going, and then the next generation kind of just goes along a little bit and doesn't do much, and then the third generation comes in and really kicks in again. Is that true?
No. It just
That's a
depends.
myth.
Yeah, it's a lawyer answer. It just depends. It depends on, because some second generation business owners are tremendous successes, and some then third generation business owners are flops. So there's really no way to predict unless you do careful analysis on the type of business, the people, the market, and those sorts of things.
So what's the benefit of passing on the business? It sounds like not very many work. So what do you get from it?
Well, I think the biggest thing that people tell us they get from it is the satisfaction of continuing dad or granddad or great-granddad's legacy. That's a tremendous benefit, a tremendous psychological benefit. There's also some financial considerations. If the goose has laid golden eggs for your families for a few generations.
Yeah,
why bother stopping it? In fact, in many cases, if not in most cases with closely held companies, they can't afford to sell the business because the business has been so lucrative to them. An alternative investment, which you'll talk about later in the program, may not be nearly as attractive.
I would think one real big problem is not necessarily the problems with the kids, that they may not be able to take over and do as good a job as dad or granddad, but the opposite. You have dad or granddad who say, take it over, and they stand back and say, oh, that's not the way that's supposed to be loaded onto that
pressure
truck.
is on.
And they'll come back
Yes.
and meddle in. That happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yes, we try not to use the M word because it's meddling.
Meddling.
Because it's inflammatory to the senior generation, but that does happen quite often. I think it's very much like a mom letting go of her children when they turn 18 or 20 and they fly from the nest and they go off to college. Now, in this case, you've got males and their baby is the business. And the thought of someone else mishandling that business, even for a minute, is frightening to them.
Are you suggesting, for the dads who decide they want to hand this business over, are you saying they have to be prepared to step back and let it rise or fall, and they just can't be there all the time mucking things?
I don't want to make it that black and white, because certainly these dads after 30 or 40 years in business have so much to do. The idea is to find an appropriate role for them, a role of responsibility and a role about which they can feel passionate. At the same time, they can't be the general manager, so to speak, anymore, because if you just can't have more than one person wearing that hat, if you know what I'm saying. So the dads need to be mentors and stewards, but they're doers, they're not teachers. It's very difficult for them, and it is a transition for them in a psychological sense as well.
Wayne, please stay with us. We have a lot more ground to cover here. And for more information about the Family Business Institute, go to our website at www.rl.tv. Still ahead on The Prudent Advisor, your 401k, should you take it with you when you leave your job. But first, more tips on turning over the family business. That's next. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Prudent Advisor. Today's topic A, who gets the business? Earlier, you met a family in the process of passing the torch.
Retirement Living's Bob Beard shows us how their business has fared since then.
As the podiatry business expanded and the doctors were thinking about retirement, it was necessary to start detailed planning for the future.
When I came into practice, there was actually myself and 4 other doctors. For my uncle, we wanted to make sure we had a definite buyout available, and we started putting money away for that buyout too, which made it a little bit easier transition when he was ready to retire.
They decided that when I retired, they wanted to buy the office building as well as the practice. So we worked out an agreement over a 15-year period, and as long as they're doing their job, I should be able to maintain a reasonably decent retirement from some of that money.
Dr. Rosen and his partner, Dr. Wolfson, are working hard to keep the third-generation business thriving.
They now own the practice, both of them. They're buying it out from me. The practice has evolved considerably over the years, where it started with just my father in a very small operation, 1 assistant, sometimes 2 assistants. It's now multiple offices with many assistants.
Dr. Seltzer is now enjoying his retirement years with his wife. Early planning and clear-cut agreements with his business partners made the transition easy on everyone. For Retirement Living, I'm Bob Beard.
So it worked out well for the Seltzer's podiatry practice, but that's not always the case. Joining us again for more tips on successful family succession is Wayne Rivers with the Family Business Institute. In fact, you say most often it doesn't happen like it happens with the Seltzers.
Right, that's a beautiful story, and it did work out very well for them, but it's not so clean with most people. In fact, I think if you've probably explored the Seltzers a little more, you'd find out theirs wasn't completely seamless either.
It never is?
Never is, and if you think about it, for example, there's a period when the 2 doctors were working together, and at that point you've got the direction of the senior generation having been prevalent for very long, and now, but you've got some pull from the junior generation who may want to do business in ways a little bit different. And so during that period of overlap, when they're both in the business together, which may be 2 years or it might be 20 years, you've got some different dynamics and different pressures.
Wayne, what are the greatest barriers to succession? What do people really face?
Well, I've asked this question many hundreds of times over the years. I ask people, what do you have too little of? Period. That's it. And the number one answer, going away, not even close, is time. We don't have enough time. The businesses demand, today's businesses demand so much of people, and so they work, and they don't have the luxury of the time they need to devote to preparing for succession. We advise people to prepare for succession as if that's a discrete project. And most simply don't have the time to add one more project to the list they already have going.
Time, I would think, also would apply. In fact, we mentioned this during the break, that the younger generation perhaps doesn't want to work 80 or 90 hours a week like Dad or Granddad did.
Right. One of the generational schisms that we see is that the senior generation measures commitment to the company by work hours. They worked 90-hour work weeks regularly when they came along. They expect their second or third generation to do the same. Well, today's 40-year-old is not willing to do that. There's a vast generational divide. Today's generation wants balance in life. They want to be able to have a normal 8 hours of sleep, and they want to exercise, and they want to go to church and have civic functions. In the old days, that wasn't the case. So the generational issue is the senior generation sees this lack of a desire to work 90 hours a week as a lack of commitment to the business, which may not be true at all, but that's their measuring stick and one of the only ones that they really use.
And that's a tough one to get over.
It is a tough one to get over because most folks don't have any sorts of accountability measures beyond how many hours per week you work.
Tell us about other barriers.
The other barriers have to do with the fact that if you take today's 70-year-old who started and grew a business, he's still a young man. 70 ain't what it used to be. And so these 70-year-olds still have things they want to do in the business, goals they want to reach, targets they want to hit, and they certainly are the keepers of the vision of the family businesses.
So many of these successions fail, as we have discussed today. What happens to those businesses? Are they just sold by the second or third generation?
I'm afraid so. Most family businesses don't have much value outside of insiders. In other words, the family members or the key employees. Most sales of closely held companies that we see are sales to insiders, not outsiders. What outsiders want is a business that can run in the absence of its founder or owner, and most can't do that very well. So there's not a sellable asset in most cases. So you close the doors or you sell to insiders, and that's really about it.
Okay, Wayne, thank you so much. This has been, it's interesting.
Really
we all know families or groups, where they've had these problems, and it's amazing to me to hear officially how many of these problems cause the failure of the business. Well, thank you, Wayne, very much.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead, Stock Talk. Karen Gibbs takes a closer look at two real estate investment trusts, better known as REITs.
But first, 401k questions. Should you take it when you leave or roll it into an IRA? Motley Fool Robert Brokamp next with some sound advice.
For more information on the Prudent Advisor, visit our website, www.rl.tv, or email us at prudentadvisor@rl.tv.
Welcome back. So you've been smart about saving, investing heavily in your company's 401k, but now you're leaving your job for greener pastures. The question is, should you take your green with you? And here with some tips on how to get more for less from your retirement savings plans is Robert Brokamp, a smart, always a very smart Motley Fool. Welcome back. Always good to have you. So
Thank you. Thank you.
It's the dilemma. Do you take it or leave it?
It's a good question. And for the most part, we recommend that you move your money from the 401k to an IRA. And we're talking here about your defined contribution plan, not a traditional pension, actually not company stock. We're talking about the basic 401k plan. For the most part, you should move it to an IRA because really 401k plans are basically a limited selection of expensive mutual funds, and you'll get far more options, lower cost options, if you move the money to a traditional IRA.
So you're suggesting that your company's plan may be mediocre, not as good as you could get on your own.
Absolutely.
Is there a time limit on this? Do you have to take it out within a certain period of time? And when you take it out, where do you take it to?
That's totally up to the company plan. Big company plans run by big companies will usually let you keep the money there as long as you want. Smaller plans are more likely to say, within maybe a year of retirement, you have to take the money. And if that's the case, you definitely want to move the money. Otherwise, they're going to send you a check, and there can be real tax consequences to that.
Robert, when you say that your company plan probably isn't as good as what you can get on the outside, how so?
The average 401k plan has maybe 10 investment choices, usually mutual funds, usually of average to high cost, Compare that to an IRA where you can pick anything from mutual funds to stocks to maybe even individual CDs. You have more control of how much you pay for those. And also a more interesting development is that Congress and the Department of Labor are now looking at 401k plans with a lot of hidden fees, money that you're paying that you don't even know you're paying. So with the 401k system, there's just higher costs and fewer options.
Is there a downside of taking it with you?
It depends on how you do it. When you move the money, you don't want to ask your 401k plan, send me a check. What you want to do is decide where you're going to move the money. Let's say you're going to move it to a mutual fund company or a discount brokerage, something like that. You call them and you say, I want to move the money, and you let them handle the transfer. Otherwise, again, you might get that check in the mail, and there can be severe tax consequences if you don't follow the exact rules for getting that money into an IRA.
Discount brokerage, there might be some problems there too, though.
Sure. It depends on what kind of investor you are. If you're a do-it-yourself investor and you're comfortable handling your money, a discount brokerage, I think, is a good option for those types of people. But keep in mind that if you're retiring and you're getting your 401k, this is probably the largest amount of money you've ever handled in your life. So if you're not a do-it-yourself investor and you're not comfortable with that, then what you want to first do is find a financial advisor that you're comfortable with working with. Tell that person, I want to move the money, and then they will handle the transfer.
And what should I be looking for in my new IRA?
You want, first of all, the types of investments that you are comfortable with. So if you're a mutual fund investor, look for good mutual funds. If you're a stock investor, you want to make sure that the trades are low cost and executed quickly and stuff like that. The vast majority of people really, I think, need a collection of 5 or so low-cost mutual funds, and then you look at the service, which is another benefit of IRAs. 401ks are really are geared towards people who are saving. They don't really provide good customer service with people who are spending their money.
Now, I don't want you to go before we talk about that strange 55 to 59-and-a-half-year-old problem.
Right.
Explain that to us.
For most 401k plans, IRAs, any sort of retirement plan, you can't touch the money until you're 59 and a half. There are some exceptions, but that's the rule. You get penalized. However, with a 401k plan from the employer that you just retired from, you can actually take the money earlier. You can take the money at age 55. So if you're retiring between 55 and 59 and a half, then you might want to leave your money in your 401k until you're at past age 59 and a half. But for most other people, it's better to move the money.
Anything that you can tell us, I mean, what's the one thing where people make most of their mistakes?
The biggest mistake is, again, to get that check. What happens when the company sends you that check, they are required to withhold 20% of that money by the government, and that gets sent to Uncle Sam. When you put that into your IRA, you have to make up that 20% out of your pocket. If you don't do that, it's deemed a distribution, and you will pay income taxes and perhaps a penalty on that.
So once again, you want to get the IRA, you want to pick the IRA you want to move to, and have that person contact your business.
That's the best
Robert Brokamp, always with great ideas, not only on investments, but safe ideas. And for more investment tips from The Motley Fool, check out its website, fool.com. Pretty simple. Still ahead, Karen Gibbs takes a look at REITs. Your money is next. Welcome back to the Prudent Advisor. It's time for your money. Always a good time to grab a pen and paper for valuable financial advice aimed at making your portfolio even stronger.
You know, there's a way for you to invest in real estate without actually buying a single piece of property. It's called a real estate investment trust, or REIT. Retirement Living contributor and veteran business correspondent Karen Gibbs is back to talk about two of the better-known REITs. I think you better explain first off what we're talking about here. You're buying land, but not a specific piece. You don't have to cut the grass.
You're pretty right there.
All right.
Basically, a real estate investment trust is a vehicle where you, as you mentioned, can invest in some form of property and get money back. Real estate investment trusts are very attractive because if that real estate investment trust or REIT chooses to distribute 90% of its income, it does not have to pay federal income taxes. It's distributed to the shareholders, and they pay taxes, but they pay it at a reduced rate at the capital gains tax.
But if you don't distribute the 90%, as some companies don't,
yes,
you have to pay tax, right?
You do. That company will have to pay federal income taxes.
Before you get it.
Before you get that, right.
Now, you've got two you want to talk about. One of them is Duke Realty.
Yes.
And you like Duke Realty?
Actually, I do. I think real estate investment trusts are a wonderful way of investing in commercial property. And most people think of real estate as their homes and residential houses. But no, it can be hospitals, it can be hotels, it can be government projects, it can be, and Duke Realty is a diversified commercial real estate investment trust that kicks out about 4.5% in dividend yields, and they have elected to pay federal income taxes. What they can do, though, after they pay that money is have money left over, retained earnings, that they can then buy up more properties. And real estate investment trusts are very attractive because many people think that the property underneath it is undervalued.
Karen, as long as you're talking about commercial real estate, are you a little better protected in these times than if it was residential?
Well, certainly when you compare what's going on in the housing market, houses have gotten so expensive, the prices started dropping, the market is imploding, but it means that those people that would have bought are now doing something else. They're renting. And so multi-unit properties for residential apartments are doing very, very well. Certainly hotels are doing wonderfully. And the other one, which is Getty Realty, is investing in gas stations, convenience stores, and you can imagine with gas at $3 a gallon, how attractive those properties are.
And what about dividends here?
Dividends there for Getty, 6%. That's awesome. They do not pay the income taxes, so they're throwing all that money back to the shareholders who pay, again, the capital gains tax on those dividends.
Wouldn't that be the best deal, then, of the two for an investor?
It depends on what you want. You're looking at the Duke Realty, which has an incredible amount of property in Baltimore, the old GM plant. They are taking that and turning it into a 16-building, almost 30-acre industrial park. And the money that they're going to get off of leasing and selling that property is going to make up for what they would have lost in paying taxes.
Karen, as always, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Well, that's our program for today. I'm John Palmer.
And I'm Lee Thompson. Thank you for tuning in to Retirement Living, TV for your freedom years. See you next time.